Hello everyone. Hey, welcome back to my channel. Thank you for stopping by for another episode of Friday Reads, aka where we talk about all the books I read this week and or plan on reading this weekend. Alright, so let's start off with the book that I ended up finishing this week, and that was, I had to get the book, okay? A Touch of Jen. Touch of Jen by Beth Morgan. I'm filming at night, so there's going to be some noise. I do apologize in advance. But I finished this book this week. I gave it like 3 stars. If I'm being honest with you, I wanted to give it 2.75, but then I did a little bit of digging, did some research. I realized the kind of book that this was, and then I changed my mind. I moved it up to 3 stars. Like, I enjoyed it, especially in the beginning. I was having such a great time. I was really enjoying Remy. He was like a really great character. But then when we get to like the middle part, like maybe the middle of the third quarter, then it kind of like went down for me. Like, I felt like we were at a point where nothing was really, like, things were happening, but it felt like nothing was happening. It felt uneventful is what I should say. It felt really uneventful, and I wasn't having a good time. And I spent a good portion of the book trying to figure out, like, when is this going to be over? But then towards the first fourth of the fourth portion of the book, then it started to like change to something else, and then it became like, whoa, what's going on here? Like 90%, like when it was like 90% of the way through of the book on my Kindle, then it was like, okay, things are happening. I'm confused. What's happening? So I finished the book and I was just like, I don't understand what's going on. But then, like I said, when I did some digging and I was watching some of the interviews with the author, and then I watched some of the movies that she says she felt inspired by, and then I was like, oh, okay. So I watched Donnie Darko, The Fly. There were I've seen The Matrix before, but there were other movies that I didn't watch, but there were also some movie references in the book as well, and I think that those are little nuggets, I would say, that can kind of help to give you an understanding of like what the overall story is about. But let's get into the book in itself. I purchased this book because I was saying to myself, like, I'm at the point in my personal life where I want to be able to, if I am going to get physical copies of books, I want to make sure that they are books that I feel like I want to read multiple times. And so eventually I'm going to have like a bookshelf back here where I just have only the books that I feel like I would like to reread, maybe a month from now, a year from now, 10 years from now, whatever. It's just like, these books are serious books that I want to keep in my collection. I'm not buying books like physical copies that I'm not really sure if I'm going to be wanting to reread it. Like, I was at the store and I seen some books from Emily Henry or something like that, and I wanted to pick up one of them because I've heard a lot about them. My cousin, she likes to send me like Instagram reels for like book talk and like Instagram Bookstagram or something like that. And so oftentimes the recommendations have like Emily Henry in them. So I was like, okay, well, who is Emily Henry? And like, oh my God, I feel like I got something in my eye. And so I was like, well, I would like to see, but then I was like, no, I don't want to get the physical copy because I don't want to get a physical copy of a book that I might not enjoy. So I'm gonna wait till it goes on sale for $1.99, or if it's on Kindle Unlimited, I might get it. Yesterday, I went to Kendrick Lamar's concert. Kendrick and SZA's GNX concert.
Somebody died, they turn into noise. I go line like pray for my city, looking for likes in the digital world. Daddy a killer, he wanna be treated, they want to die, the shit that they gone. Get too much money in this valley, but letting it shaky. I fuck this song, the very first time I shot me Drake. Homie ain't told me that Amy this white.
this shirt. I had a good time, but it's just, I've never been to like a stadium concert before where it's like tens of thousands of people. When I tell you, when everybody was like screaming and saying the words to the songs and stuff like that, I was feeling it in my chest. And I was like, this is crazy. Like, ears, forget about it. Man, that was like a crazy cool experience. I stood in line for like an hour to get the shirt, and they didn't even have my size. And the guy had the nerve to ask me for a tip. I was like, sir, like, we spent like 2 seconds together, and you didn't even have my size, and you want me to freaking tip you like freaking 15? Like, I get it, but like, sorry. And then the shirts are like expensive anyway, so sorry. Never mind the freaking ticket. So anyways, so that was a really cool experience. I had to go to another state in order to see it, because I guess like people don't like come into the state where I live in right now. But it's cool, whatever. Let's talk about A Touch of Jen. So from the last week, we discussed how it's told from a third perspective, but it follows mainly a man named Remy, who is like 30 something. He's like in his 30s, or I think, and he is dating this lady named Alicia, and they are obsessed with this lady named Jen. Remy knew Jen from when they used to work at a restaurant together, but then it had closed down. But it was like, he hasn't seen her in like almost 3 years. Like, I think it's like 2 years, 7 months or something like that. So he hasn't seen her. Okay, not almost, because like that's like technically whatever, 2.5, but whatever. He hasn't seen her in like 2 years, 7 months. They pretty much like stalk her social media pages. So if you look at the cover here, which I absolutely love the cover, but you see this little square here. I thought it was a cassette, but it's not a cassette. It in fact is like some sort of like social media type of notification type thing. And you can see the person, she's trying to climb over it. So to me, when we get into like the conspiracies, we'll discuss that. Let's talk about what I wrote down, because I feel like with this book, is what makes it really cool and makes it like able for someone to kind of like go back to like read it again and again and dissect it or whatever, is because like I feel like it's kind of like The Matrix, where it's like these culty kind of like movies where a person such as myself, who occasionally wears tinfoil kufis every now and again, we can get a book like this and kind of go wild with the conspiracy theories. So this book is like really good for like people who are closeted conspiracy theorists, because you can read this book, or you can interpret this book any way that you want. So you can go from the moral aspect of the book, where it's more so about the theme, or the moral of the story, whereas like a couple who are obsessed with this person on social media, and you can have that conversation about what it means to be on social media, or be fixated with someone's social media account, and then dealing with that person in real life, and how that obsession can really deteriorate a person's mentality and cause them to kind of like crash out. We can talk about that aspect of the book, but I don't want to. I want to dive into the conspiracy theories of the book. So we follow this man and his girlfriend, and they are extremely obsessed with this lady named Jen, who he used to work with at a restaurant. To me, I feel like social media in this book represents, or can be, some sort of vortex where it can mentally transport a person into said person's created reality. Have you ever, and I've done this before, when I liked a guy and a guy liked me, and before we like decided, if we decided that we were going to have some sort of like connection outside of like, hello, how are you, or whatever the case may be, and you want to see that person, you go on their social media accounts with your girlfriends or your guy friends or whatever, and you do a little digging. You try to figure out who this person is. And maybe you'll run into like their friend's page or their family's page or their mom's page or their siblings' page to get a better understanding of who this person is. And then you have this like idea, right? Or low-key story of like, or concept of who you think this person is before you even like actually engage in a person-to-person experience. So like I was saying, so social media can act as like some sort of, is like in this book, it kind of feels like a vortex of some sort where, like I said, it can transfer the person into that person's like created reality. And mind you, I said created reality because when you're dealing with social media, you're not necessarily representing yourself fully. We have that portion of it. So keep that in mind when, if, and hopefully I can like kind of weave it all together. But I want to start off with that, right? Because it's a like I feel like it's being represented on the cover. But let's get into the story. So I want to start off with this quote from Donnie Darko, and his character says, "Destruction is a form of creation." Keep that in mind as we jump down. I'll hold your hand. Stay close, okay? Because it's going to get dark. So I wrote, detachment from reality due to the threat of his positioning in the real world, living paycheck to paycheck in the service industry, staying in an apartment that is slowly being consumed by mold. Remy genuinely believes he is not a good person. That's why he's so bitter and judgmental. He yearns for a human connection with the world, but it's just not possible for someone like him. So one of the themes in this book tackles loneliness. So I said loneliness in a world of false connectivity due to the illusion that social media represents, with creating this readily access and availability to people in their private lives. Remy has so much resentment for the world and the fake in it that puts on a mask and puts on a performance in order to appear appealing, open, and good. So I kind of talked about that a little bit. Remy is not a likable character. Throughout the entire book, he's just awful. Like, he's absolutely awful. It's funny to me, but imagine, like, having, like, someone like that in real life. It's like, dang, why are you always so negative? Like, I can't even have a good time because you just want to suck the fun out of the whole situation. I can't even have a conversation without you making it all doom and gloomy. And I will entertain some craziness. But it's like, if we all just chilling and hanging out, like, calm the freak down. You know what I'm saying? Like, it ain't that deep sometimes. It ain't that deep. But it is deep to people who are not having a good time in their lives. So another situation that we want to talk about is destiny. Okay. Now, before we get into destiny, okay, let's talk about a book that is referenced in here. It's supposed to be like a self-help book. But once again, it can be considered a self-help book if we want to talk about the theme being morals and all that stuff like that. What the morals to the story are. But then if we're gonna go to the conspiracy side, okay, so there's this book in here called The Apple Bush. Now this book is like a self-help book, and it's all about obtaining one's best self. For Alicia, her best version is someone like Jen, becoming Jen. For Carla, it's obtaining a guy that she likes. For Jen, she has read the book, but she thinks it's stupid, but there is a part of her that wants to obtain this idea of freedom. Freedom from the restrictions and the confinement of the kind of relationship that has these kind of standards and expectations. She wants to just be able to be free to travel the world, do whatever she wants, and not have to be bogged down by these moral expectations. So the irony alone about this book is that apples don't grow on bushes. Apples grow on trees. And so if we want to talk about the moral of the story, we can have this conversation of self-help books and that commentary of like whether it truly serves the person's best interests, or is it just more so a kind of industry that preys on vulnerable people. With this Apple Bush book, you can see how as Remy's mentality deteriorates, you can see how he becomes completely reliant on the ideas of the Apple Bush and the people that subscribe to these ideas. You can see how they can kind of prey on him to use them to their own benefit so that they can get the goal, the end goal, or the targeted goal that is mentioned in the book. So I said the irony alone is that apples grow from trees, not bushes. This idea of being the best version of oneself puts a person in a perpetual state of performance, regressing anything about oneself that's unable to just go with the flow of things, which according to Jen, in her relationship with Horace, is complicated, having to constantly have one's morals constantly under the microscope of judgment. Carla uses Remy's spiraling to her advantage in order to get what she wants out of him. Andrea is able to use her husband's death to make a self-help book that she can't actually be of assistance for. Now that we've talked about the book, let's talk about some of the key ideas in the book, right? So four main things, okay? We're going to talk about signifiers of flow. We're going to talk about consummate results. And then we're going to talk about those other things. So signifiers of flows is what you would call like, coincidences or like the universe sending you signs. Like some people, like they're into like numerology. So if they see like 444 or 1111, right? Or some people are into astrology. So like they'll look at those type of things. Or they'll look at their birth charts. They look for signs, and those signs in apples, the apple bush, the signifiers of flow. If you are not in tune with the universe, if you're not in tune with your reality, then you won't be able to identify the signifiers of flows that are sent here to help align you on your true path, or align you on a path of being your best self, or obtaining your goal, which is what they call consummate results. So the consummate results is what you would call your destiny or your goal, and this is your fullest potential, your best self, and it's also for Remy, this represents Jen. So Jen is his destiny, he feels. Eventually, he starts to believe. The more his brain, like his mental deteriorates, the more he starts to believe that Jen is his destiny. So we're going to talk about parallel universes here, okay? In the book, The Apple Bush, it talks about multiple universes. So we'll call Remy's reality in this book timeline 1 or timeline A or whatever. So Remy is in timeline A. There are multiple universes that are on top of Remy's timeline A, but there are different versions of Remy, different versions of Jen, different versions of Alicia, and other characters in the story. If there are multiple universes that are aligning with the idea of Remy's destiny being Jen, then it makes that storyline more potent. So much so that it starts to bleed into the multiple universes. Say, for instance, if they're obviously it could be an infinite amount. Oh my gosh. Sorry. But say that there's multiple universes, right? So say that there's like multiple universes. There might be like, we'll say 5 for now. So say that there's like 5, right? 3 of them can be where Jen and Remy are destined to be together in some way, shape, or form. There could be one universe where Remy and Jen are fighting and they're not supposed to be together, and like it can't work out. Like they realize like, whoa, like this is rigged, this is fake, this is not what I wanted. I have to like fight against this, right? And then there could be another one where it's just like they never meet or whatever the case may be, right? Because there's multiple universes where Remy believes or feels like he is supposed to be with Jen, it makes the signifiers of flow in universe A very potent and strong. Because of this potency, you'll have this creature, okay? Follow me. You'll have this creature that manifests into Universe A called a paranormaligus. And that creature, that warped and distorted creature, makes it to Universe A. And it takes on the form of a half human, half insect. Now, in the book, it says it's warped and distorted because of it having to time travel throughout these universes. And so by the time it gets to universe A, it kind of looks a little bit crazy. Now, depending on what that creature looks like, it is a link to understanding what your consummate result is. For Andrea, her husband passed away because it succumbed to its creature. Now, the creature in Andrea's case looked exactly like Andrea, but it was smaller, and the husband just was too weak to want to put up a fight. He just like surrendered. He was just like, all right, just take me out. As far as like focusing on what the moral of the story is, I think that the creature can represent depression. It could represent just going down a dark path and letting that darkness consume you to the point where it can either literally take your own life, or you just tap out. Now, as far as like the whole conspiracy thing, say if this creature really does exist, but then you have to ask yourself, well, how does it exist? It wasn't manifested because of your brain, not necessarily. It was manifested because it literally traveled from one universe to universe A. So it leads you to think that maybe this creature was created some way, shape, or form. Maybe in a different universe, Remy was a scientist, and Remy had some sort of experiment that went wrong and created this creature. Maybe it was Jen. Maybe it was Alicia. Maybe there's like a universe where all of these creatures exist, kind of like in the Matrix, where you have all these machines. They all exist in this, like in an actual place, and they feed off of the humans, and they can represent like different people, right? Because it's half human, half insect. So it has a face of a person, right? Could have a face of any of these characters in the book. It just so happens that we are following the life of Remy, and so we're getting his story, his timeline, as opposed to Alicia's or Jen's or whatever. Now, I believe, right, because the Paranormalicus is a manifested toxic antagonist, and it's only there in order to act as an obstacle in stopping a person from reaching their consummate result. For Remy's situation, it is supposed to stop Remy from getting to Jen. For me, I feel like I said before, I think that somewhere in one of these timelines, Jen may have sent the monster down to this universe. Because it's kind of like what makes me think about this is because Jake Gyllenhaal is in the book. There are 2 movies that he started. One is actually mentioned, right? So the Zodiac is actually mentioned. And if we're talking about morals of the moral aspect, right? The moral of the story on this side, then we can go with this idea that maybe this is when the creature starts to kill the characters, the creature actually is Remy. In order for him to cope or like continue to like live without completely self-destructing, he convinces himself that instead of it being him, that it is a creature that's doing it. Say like if this creature is real. In Donnie Darko, Frank, thank you. Okay, thank you. She gave me some money, y'all. Okay. I'm rich. Frank goes to Donnie Darko, or I'll just say Donnie. Frank visits Donnie in order to help him do certain things in their timeline in order for Donnie to save the world. Because what happens is there is an initial timeline, but then something happens and it creates a different kind of tangent timeline or tangent universe. So it breaks off, and then they're all traveling on a separate, like a different kind of like reality. And with that timeline, their world is going to be destroyed. And so Frank visits Donnie because Donnie is the only person that can save their original timeline, or at least get their original timeline back. So I feel like Jen in this scenario, or Alicia, who knows, but I feel like they send the monster or the creature, like in Donnie Darko, to Remy in order to try to break this never-ending cycle where Jen and Remy are tethered together. So it could be a universe where, like, say, like in the Matrix, they decide that they no longer want to play this within the simulation. They want to rid themselves from this storyline and they want to break free. The reason why I feel like it's Jen, because in the book she talks about no longer being confined to the restrictions of what a relationship entails. Where it's like, oh, you gotta, my partner says that we gotta do X, Y, and Z, or you have to look like this, that, and so forth. She doesn't want to do that anymore. And so she wants to be free. She doesn't want to play these games. She doesn't want to live by these codes. She just wants to travel and just do her own thing. So that's why I believe that it was Jen who sent the monster to destroy Remy so that they can finally rid themselves. But what ends up happening is something really weird at the end, which then we would have to sit here and go into that whole discussion. So everyone is connected by the multiple timelines. Remy can sense that he's meant to be with Jen. That's why he's obsessed over her and stalks her social media. He is being pulled by his destiny to be with her because they're together in other timelines. In another timeline, Jen desperately does not want to be with him, so she sends the monster to keep him from being with her. With Jen, Remy can feel simultaneously good and bad. Remy is so uncool and awkward and weird that it's hard for him to even hold casual conversations without being perceived as something wrong and negative. Jen, as his destiny, represents his ticket to acceptance. I need to read this again because now that I have an idea of what I think this book is about, like, I need to read this again so that I can see, like, what this is. Because I think what I'm missing is Alicia and who she represents. Because yes, she ends up being, after she passes, she ends up being one of Remy's signifiers of flows from another universe. She's able to send these texts and she's able to communicate with Remy in regards to telling him in ways in which he can, like, obtain Jen. She says, like, follow the thing with the bow on it. So like in the Matrix, right, they tell Neo to follow the white rabbit. And so I think that either Alicia is like the architect, or like Alicia is someone significant in either creating something in another timeline. Maybe another timeline breaks off where something happens and Alicia is Jen. Because throughout the book, Alicia talks nonstop about how they're connected in so many ways. She can't escape it. And I think that Alicia, somewhere along the lines, is the mastermind to this. And she utilizes Remy, like the architect utilizes Neo. And so maybe, like, that's okay. So I think that her cleansing her body, right, was in a way of ridding herself of the essence of Alicia and merging Jen's consciousness in her body, like that altered state show or book. I have it, but I'm not going to go get it. So I think Alicia's the mastermind behind all of this. And because Remy is just so, he's an easy target. Thank you so much, y'all. Look at all, yes. Look at all the money I got. Here, okay, there you go. Thank you. All right. Okay. So that is all that I have for that whole thing. Yeah. So that's pretty much it for that. Right now, what I'm reading currently, I'm not really sure. I did get Sorrow and Bliss. I didn't start it yet though, but I'm interested in reading that. But I don't know, I'm borrowing it from the library, so I'm not really sure right now. But yeah, so I'm currently reading, I'm like 12% the way of That Time I Got Drunk and Saved a Demon. I'm reading that right now. I was reading that on the way to the concert. It was okay. I don't really know too much about it just yet to even like have that conversation. I also borrowed Sorrow and Bliss by Meg Mason, but I don't know. I'm kind of really not in the mood to like read anything too like sad or deep or whatever the case may be. I'm also too at the same time I'm listening to an Audible on Libby, and this is called Tell Me Everything by Elizabeth Strout. This is another book in the Women's Fiction Prize. It hasn't been picked yet. I think the winner is supposed to be chosen, I think in June or July or something like that. So I have 2 books left. I have Tell Me Everything, and then I have Fundamentally. I actually have Fundamentally on my Audible, but I kind of want to read it. I've heard so many great things about it, so I actually want to read the book as opposed to listening to it, because I want to be able, like I feel like it's a lot more to talk about. With this, we follow like old people that lives in a town in Maine, and there's this main character named Bob. He has a relationship with this author named Lucy. He has like 2 ex-wives and a wife that he currently has, and it kind of reminds me of like Frederick Bachman's style of writing, where we follow like multiple characters. They all have stories, and they all like in some way, shape, or form connect in some sort of way. So it kind of feels like really chill, laid back, and it's like a colorful storytelling, but it's like really chill or mellow or whatever the case may be. So it's not like as like crazy where it's just like there's like drama. There's drama, but it doesn't feel like heightened as far as like energy wise. It's just really chill. We're just talking about old people drama, really. But yeah, I'm on chapter 8. So I'm like 24% of this book. I kind of want to read it again, like start over again. But I don't know, I don't know. I was supposed to have been listening to it on the drive to the concert, but I ended up not doing that. So I don't know what I want to do, though. I'm not really sure. I think I might just end up like reading or finish reading The Time I Almost Killed a Dragon. What is it called? Where is it? Did I lose it? The Time I Got Drunk and Saved a Dragon. I think I might finish that one because it is funny. We follow this lady named Cinnamon. She lives in some town. I forgot what it's called. But every year or so, they send a chosen one out of town, outside of the protected barrier. They'll send a chosen group of people to go out there and to defeat like demons, and they come back or they don't, but the whole goal is to keep the town safe, and they are promised like a partner or something like that. It kind of starts off like the Wheel of Time, where you're in like this like small town, and there's like a little party that's going on, and then a demon comes in the middle of the night and all hell breaks loose. It kind of feels like that. But it's funny. Like there are some parts in here that I'm laughing at and stuff like that. And so I might be more interested in that than reading Sorrow and Bliss. Like I think I've depressed myself out of my depression. And so I'm kind of just in the mood for something fun. So who knows? But anyways, thank you guys so much for tuning into this episode. I hope you guys are able to enjoy yourselves. Thank you guys so much for being here. And hopefully I was able to entertain y'all and get y'all thinking. If not, it's cool. It's cool. Have a great day, afternoon, evening, night, morning, whenever, wherever you're watching in the world. Until next time, peace.